What's up, my PetaPixies? It is Chris Nichols here for PetaPixel, and today we're going to be reviewing the Sigma 17mm Contemporary f4 DGDN. I've got it on L-Mount here today. Let's get started. Now, Jordan and I have always appreciated having very compact ultra-wide prime lenses that are fairly affordable because, frankly, there just aren't that many of them out there, and they're very useful for anything like street photography, landscapes, architecture, but the only things they can't handle are astrophotography. That's where you might want to spend more money and get a brighter aperture. For video applications, these are also excellent because they're so small, you can put them on a gimbal very easily, balance them quickly, excellent for vlogging work as well. And there's just so many situations where I might want the look of an ultra-wide lens, but I don't necessarily want to carry around a heavy 16-35 f2.8 zoom. That's where something like this makes a ton of sense. I love the look of these contemporary lenses. The all-metal design, the knurling on the rings, everything just really feels high quality. I like the way they look, I like the way they feel in the hand, but they're also really light and small. 225 grams is basically under an eighth of a noct, 55mm filter threads. As far as controls go, pretty simple. The aperture ring does have a really nice positive feedback to it, but you cannot declick this particular aperture. Otherwise, all we have is autofocus manual focus selector switch. There's no IS in this lens, no image stabilization, because frankly, you don't need it in these ultra wides, and you're probably gonna have it in the body anyways. So how about this little Sigma 17mm for video applications? Well, first off, for vlogging, what I'm doing right now, I do like this focal range. I mean, it does give me a lot of width. Certainly I can have more in my frame, or if I was shooting this on a Sony E-Mount like the ZV-E1, where it's doing a lot of cropping, this would be excellent because it just gives me that extra field of view to manage all that cropping. And actually breathing is pretty well controlled. So if you wanted a compact, handy little ultra-wide video lens, I think this is a great choice. So one of the things that really stands out about the 17mm f4 is actually just how close you can get and what kind of macro kind of shots you can achieve. So this is actually really impressive. It's actually just below 1:4 life-size reproduction. I believe it's 1:3.6 life-size reproduction. And as you can see here, I'm basically getting, I don't know, maybe 4 centimeters away from that flower. I mean, you do have to get incredibly close. And of course, that does mean you're often gonna block a lot of light. Luckily, we've got very soft light today. But at the same time, it does, with the 17mm focal length, give you that incredible sense of depth. Just pushes the background far, far away. So it's a really neat look. So it's time to test autofocus, and we just always ask local graffiti artists to write random stuff on poles, and then we can use it for our tests. So thank you, Taco Sadface Who Is Who. So what we're gonna do here is put this into autofocus S. You're gonna hear the motor going here, and you're gonna hear the beep, and here we go. I mean, you really can't ask for better performance than that out of an ultra wide angle. This is using a stepping motor, but it's nice and smooth. I think it'd be really good for video work. It's also nice and quiet. I'm not hearing any motor noise itself. So as far as autofocusing goes, this lens perfectly handles most situations. So next, let's talk about how this lens handles sunny situations, flare, that kind of stuff. So pretty much every Sigma lens that we've tested so far has actually had really good coatings and dealt with flare quite well. As you can see here, there's not a major loss of contrast. Ghosting is very well controlled, nothing that I'm really worried about. If we take a look at sunstars here, for landscapes, it's nice to have interesting sunstars. I thought we would actually get some more interesting sunstars out of the 7-bladed aperture on this lens, but they're still kind of boring looking. So that's kind of a weakness there. But overall, if you're shooting towards the sun, it'll handle it well. Now, chromatic aberrations on this lens are actually very well controlled, and again, they'll automatically be corrected by your software, but the one that we often worry about is longitudinal chromatic aberration, Bokeh, and that's where you get color in the out of focus foreground and background areas of your images. That can be really hard to get rid of in post. Luckily, the Sigma 17mm f4 really doesn't have any Bokeh issues to worry about either. Most ultra wides that are this slow aren't going to anyways, so it's a plus. You don't have to worry about chromatic aberration. So I popped here into Dwell Modern, this lighting store, and it's a bokeh paradise in there, so I got some good tests. So let's talk about bokeh here on this lens. So first off, being a 17mm, the only way you're really gonna get very shallow depth of field at f4 is if you get fairly close to things. But in those situations, you can get some nice out of focus backgrounds. So when we look at the specular highlights here, first off shooting at f4, I would say actually it controls cat's eye pretty well. We don't have a lot of it in the corners, but what we do get is just the distortion caused by an ultra wide angle lens. So any light sources near the edges of the frame are just gonna kind of elongate. Nothing you can really do about that. Now, if we stop down the lens to f5.6, you can see the bokeh balls have a slight polygonal shape, still fairly round. They look fine. As far as the clarity of the bokeh balls themselves, quite a bit of onion ringing in there. They kind of have a soap bubble effect. But my main issue actually with the overall bokeh of this lens is actually just the rendering of things from in focus to out of focus. I find that it's not that smooth a transition, and more importantly, the background actually looks quite busy. I mean, it just has this energetic look. Some people might dig that. It's subjective, but I find it actually a little bit distracting. I prefer my lenses to have more of a smoother, softer look to the backgrounds. So Jordan wants me to talk about how sharp this lens is next. I can't possibly imagine what would have inspired that. Ouch. But the 17mm f4 is luckily a sharp lens. In fact, I would even say it is cactus thorn sharp pretty much all the way through its aperture range. Taking a look here at the center of the image shot at f4, you can see lots of contrast, great detail. If we stop down to f8, things don't really improve that much, just a hair, because it's already fantastic shooting wide open. But when we look at the corners, we also get really good sharpness. I mean, here at f4, up in the upper left corner, you can see that things are still really very decent. Nice sharpness. We stop down to f8, things improve across the whole frame. And if I was going to do any landscapes where I wanted everything in focus from center to corner, this would be a fantastic choice. So as little compact ultra-wide primes go, there's a lot to love about this new Sigma. You can get it both in Sony E-Mount or L-Mount, and I mean, really, it's optically well behaved. It's a very sharp lens no matter where you shoot it, and it has the versatility of doing some excellent close-up shots. At roughly $600, I think the Sigma gives you really nice images and good build quality for a pretty decent price. You know, if you're looking at Sony E-Mount, you could go definitely more affordable with the Samyang 18mm f2.8, but you know, image quality-wise and certainly build quality-wise, it's not up to the same standard. Sony do make a 20mm 1.8, which we like, but it is substantially more expensive. Now in Panasonic, you do have the option of going with the 18mm f1.8. It's definitely brighter, but I would say actually the Sigma is sharper because the Panasonic seems to be optimized just a little bit more for video than for stills. So I think actually the Sigma 17mm really does carve out a nice niche for itself. Hopefully this will help you guys decide whether this is the right lens for you. So leave those comments below, let us know what you think. Subscribe to our social media, and please subscribe to the channel as well. We would really appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll see you soon with more from PetaPixel.